Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for returning because the guest that I told you all about is in the house. Oh, by the way, this is Dr. Raoul Richardson on A New Day for You on Inspire You on Air, the new beat of the Bay. And I am privileged, excited, delighted to have joining us today, Gigi Armbrecht. Hi, Gigi, how are you?
Hi, Raoul. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you. It's good to see you. So please, I just want you to share with our loyal listeners some of the things that allowed you to come into the intersectionality where we met and things that have, inspired you over the course of your life and career that kind of brought you to this point. So what would you like to share with our loyal listeners?
Well, I'll just give you a little bit of my background. I was born in Mobile, but we moved away when I was 2 years old. So I grew up in Texas. And it was while I was in high school that Texas started its sincerest to date anyway, effort at meeting the requirements of Brown v. the Versus of Education.
Mm.
Um, at my high school, one year, half of the student body from Central High School came to my high school to attend school. And when I say half, I mean half of their football team, half of their cheerleading squad. It was a very strange kind of arrangement. But I remember that I felt a real need to reach out to those Black kids who had been brave enough to come to my school, because I really thought they were the bravest people I had ever known, to make that big jump from everything they knew and loved to some totally unknown, possibly hostile environment.
Wow.
I started being nice, and I was met with very mixed reception. I mean, they weren't sure what I was about and why I was being so nice and all that kind of stuff, but I just kept trying. And ultimately, we got to be more than acquaintances, less than friends. But then we moved back to Mobile at that point. And I entered Murphy High School, where kids were still spitting on the seats of the Black kids who were coming into class and just being obnoxious about the fact that our school was now integrated. And that's not everybody, of course, but just enough people to be a real shock to me, having come from Texas, where the integration efforts were a little more gradual. They had started grade by grade. It just caught up with my grade in the 10th grade. Wow. So it was, it was something I knew was coming. Apparently the kids at Murphy coming. But I went on to the University of Alabama for college, studied elementary education, went to the movies one night and saw Little Big Man. Remember that movie with Dustin Hoffman?
I do.
And all I can remember about the movie was the theme to me, which was man's inhumanity to man. Mm-hmm. And it just knocked me for a loop. And I thought about that for a long time. And when I got out of college and started teaching school, I was involved with the junior league. And I was assigned to a lot of community placements where I sat on directors. And the first one I sat on was Mobile Community Action. So I got to meet Michael Figures and Sam Jones. As a matter of fact, Sam was the EEO officer at the time. And it was quite an introduction to Black politics and the Black community. And I really enjoyed myself. I went on to serving on lots of other boards in the nonprofit sector, got involved with United Way, helped with fundraising campaigns and that sort of thing, and then got involved with Mobile United. And in those days, we had a very active race relations committee. it was one of 12 standing committees that were all very active, but that was the Race Relations Committee was one of my favorites. And that made me realize that my approach to everything is to treat everybody the same and to trust that people are honest and above board and upfront until they prove they're not. And so I've frankly had remarkable success with that approach. It's, a little harder to be ugly to somebody who's being nice to you. So I didn't have many bad experiences along, but I have stayed involved in race relations efforts and also in education. I was one of the initial board members of Mobile 2000 is what it was called at the time. And it was the beginning of the Mobile Area Education Foundation. And I served on that board for a long time and got more involved in public schools. I was a public school child all the way to school and had a strong affinity as a former school teacher to help out if I could.
What year was that when Mobile Area Education Foundation first started?
It must have been 1990, 1991, because 10 years down the road was Mobile 2000. And that was a Clinton initiative to get education back on the forefront of the national policy scene. So we had a lot of incentive.
Because I came to Mobile in 1998, and I remember meeting a young Jeremiah Newell and Carolyn Akers and all that kind of stuff. And Ms. Zogby was still here with the Boys and Girls Club back in those years.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'm just trying to frame it in my mind as to when I came to Mobile as compared to when all of these things started. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting onboarding process you had there.
Well, 1998 was when I went to work for AT&T for Mobile United too. So we had that was a big year for both of us, apparently.
Wow. Right. And we had Chris Gibson on a few weeks back because I wanted to be able to share the information about the 50th anniversary of Mobile United. Matter of fact, I called a couple of my classmates over the last couple of weeks to try to encourage them to, maybe do a reunion at one of the 50th anniversary programs. Matter of fact, just yesterday, I was on the phone with Stephen Potts from Mobile Bay Magazine.
Yeah.
And was chatting it up with him and saying, man, let's get together and let's see if we can get some of our folks together and rally to support some of these great events that are coming up for 2022. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm kind of surprised we don't have a lot of class competition for best class of Mobile.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll wrap that up. I think I'm going to try to kick it to Chris and Brittany and see if they'll kind of jump into that bandwidth as well. So you've seen a lot of stuff happen in Mobile. I mean, when I first arrived here in 1998, I was a fat black guy from New York with shoulder length locked hair. Black people didn't even want to really make eye contact with me, and white people wanted to kind of touch my hair and ask me questions and things of that sort. And it was, I have always been, being from New York City, there's just, it's the melting pot. I mean, there's a myriad of different fibers in that woven quilt tapestry of culture, personality, race, and ethnicity. So I guess I've always been comfortable with being around people that weren't necessarily like me.
Why in the world did you move to Mobile from?
Hey, I'm doing the interviewing here, but I'll answer that question. I actually discovered Mobile by accident. People in the North have a tendency to think that the South is a lot of things, and the people in the South have a lot of ideas about what the North is like. For me, most of the South was really North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Florida, anything down the I-95 corridor. Mississippi and Alabama were not on my horizons. But one particular week, I remember calling my wife at the time and saying, I need a vacation because I'd work like a Trojan, then I'd have to stop. And I said, I'd call on my way home and she'd say something like, well, what do you want for dinner? And the decisions I have to make in the course of a day, peas and carrots is very low on the totem pole. So I said, well, I don't care what you cook, I'm going to eat it. I said, but I need a vacation. She said, well, when do you want to go? I said, tomorrow. She said, where do you want to go? I said, any place as long as it's warm. And it was about the same time of year as it is now. So we got a flight from Newark to New Orleans, rented a car, and I have a place on the beach in New Smyrna Beach, Volusia County, about 14 miles southwest of Daytona. And my wife and my young son, and both my sons by that time, we drove to Daytona area and hung out on the beach for about a week or so. And when I came back home, my kids were like, you know how your kids use language you never heard them use before? My kids were saying something about they liked it down south, which I knew wasn't even part of my vernacular. So I didn't know if the milkman had gotten into my family somehow or another and was sharing concepts that were not familiar to us. But we kind of prayed about it for about a year, and then that's how we came to Mobile. And being a beach bum really was a big help. So I've traveled a lot of the world just going to beaches, and I found some beautiful beaches within a stone's throw of Mobile, and it was an easy transition.
Good. Well, we're glad you came.
Well, thank you. Very kind. You're very kind. So, by the way, folks, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to A New Day for You, and I am Dr. Raoul Richardson, and I'm glad to say I'm joined today by Ms. Gigi Armbrecht, who's sharing observations and reflections. She's one of my valued guests as a part of our celebration of Women's History Month. So we kind of went through the history, and I don't mean to say that we've ended any conversation about your history, because I'm sure there's a lot more you can share. But tell me about how it kind of impacted where the present day Gigi Armbrecht finds herself now.
Well, as a retired person for about 5 years, I promised myself I would not sign up for anything for at least the first year, that I would just sort of veg out and wear blue jeans every day instead of heels and just be relaxed. And then Merceria Ludgood called, and we've been friends for a long, long time. We were both at Alabama at the same time. At least our years crossed. We weren't there the exactly same amount of time. And as a matter of fact, listening to her history of her college education, I realized that I had totally wasted my 4 years in college in terms of really impactful decisions and circumstances. But she called about the Mobile County Community Remembrance Project, which is all about recognition and reconciliation and the time of racial terror in Alabama and in Mobile County. It's an initiative of the Equal Justice Initiative.
Yes. Brian Stevenson.
Yes. And she asked me if I would be involved. And there aren't too many people I can't say no to. I mean, clearly I'm on your show, but he's one of them. And so I agreed. And we spent the last 3 or 4 years trying to figure out how to help Mobilians recognize that there are modern day ramifications for the things that happened many years ago, starting with the Civil War. In our case, I think it was 1866, but don't hold me to it, when a gentleman was lynched just outside the county courthouse in Mobile. And his story was tragic, as they all are. And we researched it with help from Equal Justice Initiative, found out where it happened, what the circumstances were, and we plan to put a historical marker in the spot, or as close to the spot as we can, because it was more than likely slightly in the street at Government and Royal Streets.
Yes.
So it will be more, I believe we have settled on putting it in front of City Hall, since it happened outside of the old courthouse, which was in a different place. But we have 5 more victims who were lynched in Mobile County during the time frame. I think the time frame ends in 1950, which is unfortunate, because as one of my Black friends has told me, that the civil rights movement was sort of open season on Black people. And that a lot of really terrible things happened after that. But that's the time frame we're working with Equal Justice Initiative, and it's traumatic enough, I guess.
Yes, it is. Yes. I was just sharing with some of the folks from the Mobile County Health Department, as I shared with you earlier, this process and research we're doing as it relates to disparities in health. And it's interesting, if you go to Montgomery, right outside the Montgomery your Capitol building, there's a statue there of a, I guess, pre-Civil War surgeon who's proclaimed as the father of modern day OBSGYN,
Yeah.
who performed without anesthesia unauthorized surgeries on Black women. And that is just, there's enough trauma to go around for all of us, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
It's a shame. But there's a large group of us who are working on the community remembrance projects, and we all come from different walks of life and have different perspectives on everything. But we all agree that until the problem is recognized and until the legacy of racial terror is understood, we can't really have reconciliation.
Mhm.
So telling the truths of Black people in Mobile County during that time period is critical to having that happen.
Well, I'm so glad you shared that, because we just had Commissioner Ludgood on last weekend, and I'm really grateful for her accepting my invitation, much as I'm grateful for yours. And she shared some stories. It's interesting. You know, I didn't realize when I undertook this role that there was a real storytelling opportunity here, and there were a considerable number of stories that I've been able to share with our listeners here on Inspire You on Air that were, one, unknown to me, and two, may never have been able to be really, reproduced with the real buoyancy and fiber and value that, your reflections and recollections bring to the table. So I'm grateful for that. So if you're going to share anything in light of this Women's History Month and, your valued contributions to our community, I know this is a tough question, but
Mhm.
what would Gigi Armbrecht say, instead of to something you'd say to our loyal listeners, what would you say to a future you? That's one of the things I noticed that CBS has been doing, notes to self kind of thing, given the
Yeah.
lessons you've learned and experiences and people that you've met along the way. What word of encouragement, inspiration, cajoling, or correction would you offer?
Well, growing up, I was a Girl Scout all the way through high school.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I would tell the future me is to get involved and stay involved. When we moved to Mobile, I finished up, and because that was my senior year in high school, and didn't do anything else with Scouts for a long, long time. I would love to see more of my friends involved, having been involved in Scouting.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful opportunity to be exposed to lots and lots of different kinds of folks and different sorts of experiences. At least it was back in the day. Um, I would tell myself to get involved in everything that comes my way, no matter how marginally that might be. Make a contribution whenever I can, whether it's my time, my talent, or my money.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how large or small, but just to make a contribution, that we owe that to the places that produced us. So it's really just all about, I think a lot of people don't understand how rewarding and exciting and fun it is to be involved in the community you live in, and to know what's going on. I learned young that I have a very high need to know. And that was satisfied tremendously at Mobile United, because we had to know everything to be able to make decisions. And I was the staff person who had to be sure that the volunteers had the information they needed to make those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things I miss most about being retired, is not knowing everything that's going on. So,
Well, I'm going to encourage you. Look, I can't tell you how grateful I am that you shared this time, because I know how priceless and valuable, and you consider your time off in retirement and with your family and all that stuff. So you taking the time out to be with us on a Saturday morning is just, I can't tell you how grateful I am. But I will say this, okay? you can be engaged in your retirement in absentia via myself, okay? All you got to do is meet me for a cup of coffee or whatever it is you like, once a month, and I'll share with you all the going-ons. And then you can say, that's ridiculous, Raoul. You should do this, and I'll take that coaching, okay? Come on.
That sounds like more fun than I can probably handle.
I know I've never had a bad time with you. I mean, I'm sorry, folks. In case you're just tuning in, I am Dr. Raoul Richardson with Ms. Gigi Armbrecht on A New Day for You on Inspire You on Air, the new Beat of the Bay. And I'm going to just pass a real quick note about how Gigi and I first met. And I think she was shocked to know that I remembered in such vivid detail our first meeting. And it was at an event on Dolphin Street, right next to the Symphony Hall, or where the Downtown Alliance is, and there was a open lot there, and they were having like a kind of an open table thing. And I'm not sure exactly how I got there or where I got the tickets from or what have you, but I was a guest at the table where Ms. Armbrecht was, and it was just a remarkable conversation. I feel like that happened yesterday. That's how vivid that memory is in my heart and mind. And we've never stopped talking since then, really. I gave you some break and space when you retired, but I want you to know I'm coming back.
I hope that's a promise.
I do.
Okay. Well,
right.
Thank you for having me.
All right, well, we're going to have you back too. We have some more stuff to talk about. So, okay. Gigi, just hang on one second. And folks, this is A New Day for You on Inspire You on Air. And I have been chatting with my dear friend, Ms. Gigi Armbrecht, and I am Dr. Raoul Richardson. So don't you dare move. We'll be right back. Thank you.